They're sleek. They're electric. They're insanely cheap. And they're not American. For decades, we've been told Tesla was the future of driving, the crown jewel of American innovation. Elon's golden ticket to space, Mars, and who knows what else. But while Tesla's been busy launching Cybertrucks with panel gaps, there's a new name quietly taking over the electric vehicle game. And this one doesn't come from California. It comes from China. Meet BYD. Most Americans still haven't heard of it. But in the first 3 months of 2025, BYD sold over 416,000 fully electric vehicles around the world. Tesla, 336,000. That's not a close race. That's a beatdown. And the part that stings? BYD doesn't even sell consumer EVs in the US yet. So how is this happening? Well, BYD is building cars the same way Apple builds iPhones. Vertically integrated, hyper-optimized, and at insane scale. Batteries, they make their own. Chips, in-house, manufacturing, streamlined. And instead of making 6 different trims of the same model, BYD cranks out affordable EVs that work, look good, and sell. Fast. And they're not just selling, they're dominating. In the first quarter of 2025, BYD captured 15.4% of the global BEV market, officially passing Tesla, which slipped to 12.6%. That gap, it's growing, especially in places like Europe, where BYD just outsold Tesla for the first time. In April, BYD logged 7,231 new EV registrations, while Tesla managed 7,165. Now sure, that margin sounds small, but for a brand most Americans couldn't pick out of a lineup, beating Tesla in its second strongest market is more than symbolic. It's a red flag, especially when you realize they're doing this while doubling their profits. Let's break that down. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, BYD pulled in 9.16 billion yuan in net income, roughly 1.26 billion US dollars, a 100% jump from last year. Revenue? 170 billion yen, or about 23 billion US dollars, up 36% year over year. While Western automakers are laying off workers, fighting chip shortages, and rolling out limited edition EVs that cost more than your mortgage, BYD is printing money with $15,000 sedans that charge in your driveway and don't spy on your neighbors. Well, yeah, maybe. We'll get to the surveillance stuff later. But right now, what matters is this. BYD isn't just catching up to Tesla, it's flying past it. And the crazy part? They're still locked out of the US. For now. But that hasn't stopped them from selling nearly 1 million NEVs, new energy vehicles, globally this quarter alone. Nearly 60% more than a year ago. And just to rub it in 1 week this past May, BYD sold nearly 68,000 EVs in China. Tesla? About 3,000. That's not just market momentum, that's a global shift in real time. If you're Ford, GM, or even Rivian, you're not just nervous, you're sweating. Because BYD isn't trying to be cool. It's not trying to be the Apple of cars. It doesn't care about brand cults or Elon's latest tweet. It cares about something much simpler, winning. And right now, it's doing exactly that. So how are they pulling this off? How does a company that barely existed in the US conversation 5 years ago now outsell Tesla, double its profits, and still price their cars like it's 2014? It all comes down to structure. See, when Ford builds a car, it has to order parts from one supplier, batteries from another, chips from somewhere else, then ship all of it to a plant that might not even be in the same hemisphere. BYD doesn't play that game. They build everything, and we mean everything, in-house. Batteries, BYD makes them. Chips, BYD, software, you guessed it. The only thing BYD doesn't manufacture is the road you drive on. And if China's Belt and Road Initiative had a steering wheel, they might have handled that too. This kind of vertical integration isn't just efficient, it's lethal in a price war. Because when you don't rely on outside vendors, you don't wait for shipments. You don't eat up margins, you don't delay launches, you just build, sell, and move. Which is exactly what BYD is doing, at a speed that's making Detroit look like it's still running on steam engines. Now let's talk cost. In the US, the average electric vehicle costs just over $47,000. In China, BYD's best-selling electric sedan, the Dolphin, retails for about 15,000 US dollars. That's less than a used Honda Civic. And we're not talking about a glorified golf cart. We're talking 5 seats, air conditioning, decent range, and yes, a touchscreen. BYD isn't aiming for luxury, it's aiming for dominance. And that price point is their battering ram. But it's not just BYD. Chinese automakers like Zeekr, Xpeng, and NIO are following similar models. Build fast, price low, and load up on innovation. Some of them are already testing in California, quietly partnering with US logistics firms, or entering through ride-hailing and fleet channels. They're not showing up with Super Bowl ads. They're showing up with contracts, quiet ones, and they've got help. Chinese EV companies are being backed with billions in state support, subsidies, tax incentives, and infrastructure build-outs that make launching a brand there way easier than in the States. In the US, EV companies fight for tax credits and charge point placement like scraps at a buffet. In China, they're served on a silver platter. That's why even without selling directly in the US yet, BYD is planning to set up manufacturing plants in Mexico. Not for tacos, for tariff loopholes. Because if they can build in Mexico and import into the US under trade deals, they sidestep the 27.5% tariffs meant to keep them out. And then what? Well, now you've got a $15,000 EV built across the border, designed to compete with your $38,000 Tesla. You've got dealerships in Texas wondering if they should even bother restocking Bolts or Mach-E's. And you've got American consumers asking themselves a very uncomfortable question. Why exactly are we paying double for less? And that's the moment Chinese automakers are waiting for. Not the big launch, not the celebrity endorsements. Just that quiet switch in your brain where savings beat patriotism. Where price wins over pride. Where convenience finally cracks brand loyalty. Because that's when it stops being about cars and starts being about everything else. Up until now, it's all sounded like a pricing war. A market battle? China versus Detroit? Winner takes the garage. But what if it's not just about the car? Because here's the part that's making US lawmakers nervous. BYD and other Chinese EV makers aren't just building cars, they're building smart cars. And the definition of smart depends entirely on who controls the data. See, these aren't dumb machines with wheels. Today's EVs are rolling computers. They know where you go, how fast you drive, how long you idle when you charge, who's sitting in the front seat, and, in some cases, even what mood you're in. And in most cars, all that data is collected, stored, and shared with the manufacturer. In China, that means the government can access it. Legally, automatically, without needing to knock. So now imagine a car with facial recognition, built-in cameras, always on GPS, and all of that information is potentially flowing back to a country that bans Google, censors the internet, and doesn't exactly have a reputation for respecting boundaries. In February, the US Commerce Department launched a full-scale investigation into whether Chinese-made connected vehicles pose a national security risk. And by 2027, cars containing tech from countries like China or Russia could be outright banned from American roads. This isn't a tinfoil hat scenario. This is the US government saying, "We've seen this movie before, and it ends with your data being used against you." It's TikTok, but with wheels. And just like TikTok, these cars aren't barging in with sirens. They're slipping in through the side door. Because BYD is already operating in the US, not through dealerships, but through buses, trucks, forklifts, and fleet vehicles. Quiet commercial channels. The kind of stuff that doesn't make headlines, but quietly builds market share. They've already sold thousands of electric buses across American cities. New York, Los Angeles, Austin. They're testing electric delivery vans with US logistics partners, and Zeekr, another Chinese EV startup, has teamed up with Waymo, Google's self-driving car division, to test robo-taxis in California. You might not be driving a Chinese EV yet, but your city might already be riding in one. And when BYD finishes construction on its planned Mexico factory, those vehicles could legally enter the US without triggering the massive import tariffs that were supposed to block them. Just like that, they're in. Now, combine that with the data collection, the low pricing, the global growth. And it's not just a threat to Tesla anymore. It's a challenge to how we define security, ownership, and trust. Because you're not just buying a car, you're buying a relationship with the company that made it. And if that company has a history of working closely with a government that suppresses dissent, censors journalists, and operates massive surveillance networks, well, you might want to think twice before letting it watch you drive to work every day. But that's the trap, because for a lot of people, none of this will matter. When you've got a family of 5 and a $15,000 EV is sitting next to a $38,000 Tesla, all of a sudden ethics feel expensive, privacy feels optional, and national security? That's someone else's department. And that's the power of this moment. The shift isn't just economic, it's psychological. Because first it was TikTok, then it was Temu, then Shein. And now they want the keys to your car. The only question left is, are you going to hand them over?